There are many stories that are very important. Don't assume because the president is on perennial vacation at your expense that there are no important stories. He is not the sun. Congress is not the moon and the stars. I am going to talk about the execution of the Navy SEALs in 2009 until there's an investigation. I'm going to filibuster on this show on a, let's say, intermittent daily basis until Representative Chaffetz holds those hearings and we find out, we get to the bottom of who in the Defense Department, or worse yet, who in the White House, put all those SEALs on that slow-flying helicopter. The lead story on my website, michaelsavage.com, says the Navy SEALs were executed or there's a moron responsible who should go to prison. Another major story is that 98% of the stories about the trapped ship in the Antarctic are ignoring the fact that the grifters called fakers, called ex-scientists and ex-journalists, were on a global warming mission to prove that there was global warming and the ice was melting. I wonder how much carbon was used to rescue these fools, and I'm going to demand global warming reparations from these shysters in the academic industrial complex. Topic number 3, which you can't say anything about, is Dennis Rodman's friend in North Korea, Kim Jong-un, allegedly threw his uncle while he was alive, stripped naked, to wild dogs. We're not making this up. Kim Jong-un threw his uncle while he was alive into a pit with wild dogs who had been starved for a week. Dennis Rotten hasn't said a word about it. Michael Savage's dream come true. Culmination of everything I have worked for is this show in prime time across America. Well, I say prime time across America. That's really prime time east of the Mississippi on the biggest stations in the country. 52 stations that old Hay Abbott lost. Hay Abbott's still out there surfing, but I'm here working. He can surf while I work. We're going to talk about these topics on the Savage Nation as well as others. The phone number is 855-407-282. What did you think of my premiere show yesterday? I'd like my P1 audience, my regulars, nothing. 3 to 6 Eastern, noon to 3 Pacific. I mean, we're on. The country's here. The country's in shambles. You may not know it. I realize you may not know it, but there are people who believe the country's in shambles. And there are reports that the biggest billionaires in America are dumping their stocks because they fear that the bubble is about to burst in 2014. The printed money has to come to an end. How long can you print money? Well, apparently with the surfer in the White House, you can keep printing it. And stooges in the Federal Reserve, you can keep printing as long as the good times roll. And then we have the other story, which I really think we have to go back to. There's a third one I want to deal with, which was the inauguration of a socialist/communist in the mayorship in New York City. He calls himself a progressive, but the rhetoric is that of Karl Marx or Vladimir Lenin. I said yesterday Trotsky, but Trotsky was rather more liberal than the others in his Marxism, in his communism. So maybe I wasn't correct in calling him a Trotskyite. He's more like a Leninist. De Blasio had the nerve to have people who were trying to start a race war in New York speak at his inauguration. Harry Belafonte, long known for nothing except Deo. And then some character we never heard of was dredged up from somewhere, a so-called preacher from somewhere, who talked about New York City being a plantation. Now, what do you think rhetoric calling a city a plantation would do to the submorons running around playing the knockout games? Would it give them encouragement to go knock out old people who are not, let us say, like them, without mentioning anything else? What do you think the code word, this is a plantation that we need to end? What do you think that does to the submorons running around the streets of New York looking to knock out old people? What do you think it does to them? Is that worthy of conversation? I think it is. I think that anyone in an age like this tries to stir up race hatred, as was done during the inauguration of de Blasio, is a worrisome character. And it also should worry you that you have a mayor now willing to hire him. So those are some of the topics, but I didn't give you the biggest and juiciest one yet, because this one really got you excited. What do you fear Obama will do in 2014? What are your worst fears? What do you fear the surfer will do in 2014? What are your worst fears? Now, you may think that I'm being a fearmonger or an alarmist. I realize that would be a knee-jerk liberal response to such a question. But I will remind you that everything I ever feared about him and about liberalism in general and have written about in my many best-selling books going back to 2002, unfortunately, and I say unfortunately, have come true. Some friends say to me, Savage, I hope sometimes you're just being an alarmist and you're doing it only for ratings. But we know that you're a first-class scholar. We know that you have great credentials. We know you have one of the best minds in the world, and we're afraid you may be right. And they said if you follow the trajectory of what you are saying, the end line of this is the Soviet Union with re-education camps, etc. I said, well, read the Internet about FEMA camps. See if they aren't in place. Ask what Janet Napolitano did with the 2 billion rounds of hollow point ammunition. Where is that ammunition? Where did it go? Why have they bought the equivalent of tanks for the streets of America? Where are those tanks? Bulletproof tanks with machine gun turrets on them. What are they for? What are they planning? So, look, I don't want to, alarm you any more than you already are alarmed, but I'll tell you here's my read of the whole thing. If you were an average moron, you wouldn't be listening to this show. You'd be listening to sports. You would be entertaining yourself somehow. You'd be getting medical marijuana under the guise of medical when you really just want to be a pothead for the rest of your life and poison your lungs and give yourself lung cancer. You wouldn't be listening to something which provokes imagination and provokes conversation. You wouldn't be on the air unless you accidentally tuned in. Okay, fine. Then try to get on the show and argue with me if you want. There are only 2 rules on the show. No curse words. If you insult me, I can insult you better. And it's my show, and I have the kill button, so you're lost in advance. There's nothing you can do about it. Life is unfair. This is not equality. This is not communism. Talk radio is not about communism. This is an unfair situation. I can cut you off at any time if I don't like you. So try to use Aristotelian logic, and you'll stay on a very long time. First caller today is from WABC in New York. Paul, welcome to the Savage Nation. Go ahead, please.
Good afternoon, Dr. Savage. I'm a retired NYPD detective, but I couldn't be happier they get knocked the wall banger out of the main slot. As New York City cops, we really need your help with clemencyforrichard.org, where Road, D.A.A. and E. Pirro.
Thank you very, very much for that call. I certainly appreciate your plugging your own vendetta. But I like the NYPD, particularly the retired NYPD, and especially the fired NYPD. They're the best and the brightest. I like the ex-police commissioner better than I like the new police commissioner. I mean, the new police commissioner was known for doing what in Los Angeles? The police commissioner who was disrespected by the communists who just took over was the best damn police commissioner New York ever had. Look what he did. How evil can you get? He stopped gangbangers from running around with guns in their pockets. Wow, that's not equal. There was no equality. How dare you stop people and find them with loaded guns? Right? Yeah. Well, here we are. I got such great stations. I really do. I need a little rock and roll, Neil. Let's have another song. Maybe Danny and the Juniors at the Hop. Give me 15 minutes and I'll give you America.